Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And joining me today is a guest I am super excited to have here on the show. She is another author that I had the privilege of meeting at this past year's LA Festival of Books. And a little bit about her. She is a Los Angeles-based screenwriter, filmmaker, and an Amazon best-selling author with a dynamic career spanning film, television, and publishing. She most recently served as a staff writer for Walt Disney Studios' live-action feature division under an exclusive deal developing original content for Disney+. Her work spans comedy, drama from major studios and networks including Warner Brothers, FX, Universal, and the Disney Channel. It has been recognized by the Academy's prestigious Nicole Fellowship in Screenwriting, and she wrote, directed, and starred in the award-winning indie feature Lola's Last Letter, which Sony's The Orchard distributed after a celebrated festival run. Shot in the mobile home parks where she grew up, the film has since become a cult favorite within the mumblecore movement. And her second feature, A Unified Theory of Love, starring Richard Karn from Home Improvement, and Eric Isenhower from Parks and Rec, recently completed post-production and is slated for release. She began her career at the age of 20 after selling a speculative script, making her one of the youngest members ever to be inducted into the Writers Guild of America. As an actress, she appeared as Trixie in the Emmy-winning FX drama Justified, performing opposite Mykelti Williamson. I probably butchered that. I apologize. Her performance in the indie film Space earned her a Best Principal Actress nomination from LA Film Review, and the Huffington Post praised her directorial voice as unflinching. And as I mentioned before, viewers and listeners, she is also an incredible author of The Trial of Obsession and the follow-up books in this series. And in this interview, we'll be talking about her other series, which, when we last spoke in early this year, she was just in the process of finishing up, and it's been a huge success. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, author, film writer, actress, all-around jack of all trades, Valerie Brandy. Valerie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Gabe. Nice to meet you all. I feel so bad you did the whole bio.
It's fine.
2 lines.
It's fine, Valerie. I absolutely love it. And honestly, I'm blown away by your background and just everything. I'm just so stumped by the amount of work that you have done. It is incredible.
Thanks.
So for our viewers who are just meeting you for the very first time, is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers and listeners? Possibly something that maybe your fans may not know a lot about you.
I don't know. Oh my God. Well, okay, I have a cool dog. I joke that he's not a dog. He's he's a Pekingese Lhasa Apso mix, and I got it from a rescue. And he's such a crazy dude because, like, you know how dogs want to please you? And want to make you happy, not him. And I love that about him because he's got like his own spirit. So I tell people he's my therapy dog because he made me need therapy. But I love him so much, and I love that he's like his own man and has so much character. And what some people don't know is that my most recent series, Mystery at Monrovia Castle, there's a dog in that book, and he's actually based on my dog. And so a lot of people don't know that I put him in the book.
Awesome, Valerie. And speaking of your newest book, what would you like to tease your viewers and listeners as a little window into this series? Because it is if I'm not mistaken, a 5-book series currently at the moment.
Right now it's 5. My ultimate goal is to get to 20. Like I know. I try not to think about it. Right now I'm thinking about 10, and then I'll think about the next leap. But I really love this world, and I created the world because it was a place I mentally like to escape to, and I want to share that with readers. It's a place you can always go where there might be some trouble, there's going to be some adventure, but at the end of the day, you know everything is going to be okay. And it started with this idea of animal trainer Rebecca Orange, who used to work at the San Diego Safari Park. Right, I know, if you've been there, it's amazing. I love that place. And if you love animals, you got to go. They roam free. And she's a trainer there, and she works at the zoo with her longtime partner, who reveals that he also happens to be her boss at that point. And he reveals that he has cheated on her, and he's breaking up with her, and he's firing her, which is a really nice thing to do to somebody you used to care about. So poor Rebecca has to start over with nobody but her beloved Tibetan Mastiff dog, Joe. And she applies for a job working in a castle in this fictional country I created called Monrovia. And she goes to the castle to take care of their animals and kind of is in this beautiful setting in Europe. And of course, there's a murder. And there's also some Duke. So Rebecca's kind of got to solve the murder to save this new environment that she really enjoys, and she gets to work with a lot of cool animals during her time there.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible. So before we dive deep into the creation of this book, let's talk a little bit more about you, Valerie. So from your bio, I mean, you've been an actress, screenwriter, scriptwriter. You've done a lot of things, but I'm very curious. Throughout your journey in the creative world, when did you discover the passion for the written word, and what would you consider to be your definitive aha moment when you realize you want to go down the path of an author?
Yeah, it was kind of a process. I mean, so I started out thinking I wanted to be a performer because when I was a kid, I read all the time. I read books constantly, and I would do the character voices out loud. So I liked to kind of make the characters come to life and hear them, and everything I read was very real to me. So it all started with books. I was one of those kids, that was in the advanced classes, and they were giving all the intense books too. They were giving us Tolkien and that kind of thing when we were in elementary school. And I was really lucky that I had instructors in an environment where my love for reading was encouraged. And, my mom is super supportive, and I had a family where like storytelling was important. And if you had a passion for something, you should follow it. So I was read to a lot as a kid, and I had a supportive academic environment. And, as I grew in high school, I started taking screenwriting classes because I thought they offered my local city college, and I would take through there and kind of start exploring what it would be like to maybe write for film and television. And I did that successfully for many years. I have had a great career writing in that space. But one thing I found was that, if you look at movies today, it's all based on what we call IP, intellectual property.
Yes.
A lot of what I was being asked to do, ironically, is adapt books. Like, a good like 60 to 70% of my job is somebody would send a book to my agents and be like, this is for her consideration to adapt into a film. And that's lovely. And I love to do it. I'll do it all day long. But I also wanted to be at the root of the original storytelling. Like I like to be the creator and truly create every little tiny element. And while I love adapting books and I'm happy to do it, I just wanted to like be the source of that material. And so that was when I started exploring writing for books rather than just film and television. And I wrote The Trail of Obsession, which is the first book in a 4-book series. That first book took me a year. I love it. It is my artistic project. I'm very proud of it. To be candid, it's also my worst seller. It did great at LA Times Festival of Books. It does great in person. As the author, it's like one of, my babies, but online for some reason, it's not the best. And it's just so funny how that happens. But that was like my artistic project that took me a year. And I felt like I was learning like how writing for a book is different from a screenplay. The next book in that same series took me 6 months. The third book in that series took me 6 months. The fourth one, took me a little bit less. And then as I started to move on to other series, I've gotten stronger and stronger in writing for books rather than film and TV. So, I tell people this because I'm candid about like, it was a learning process too. Like I've been growing as I go. Anytime I try a new format or something different, like, I get better and better as I continue faster. But yeah, that first book that you have in your hand, 12 Obsession, is like my baby. I come back to it and I really spent a long time on it, and it was such an important one for me. And it was the one that made me say, like, yeah, why don't I just write the source material? Why not?
Amazing. Incredible. So now let's jump forward in history. So after you finish writing the Trail of Obsession series and you're now working on this sort of like cozy mystery series, what was sort of the challenges that you've discovered with writing in that genre? And then from that, what was ultimately your goal as the author going into this new series with these new expectations and ultimately the promise to your readers of your previous book series as well as new fans and readers?
It's so interesting. Yeah, I'm lucky that I've brought a lot of readers from Trail of Obsession with me. If you guys are listening, thank you very much for continuing with me. It's funny because I was nervous about that. I thought, well, readers who loved that Predator Prey thriller series, are they going to love the cozies? And they did. I've had them reach out to me and be like, yes, we're still a fan. This is fun. And I'm lucky that I have people who are willing to read in different genres. I think when I did the Predator Prey series, I think I was still working at Disney when I wrote that. And I was actively like working for so many different things at that time. And I wanted to do something a little edgier.
Right.
Because my main work was not in that space. So Trail of Obsession is a little bit darker for my aesthetic. It's not actually my baseline tone. It's out of my office. Sorry, guys. There we go. I think I'm back on. They don't know that I'm here. And so, I wanted to do something a little bit edgier. And so Trail of Obsession is like probably the moodiest, darkest kind of tone that I ever go. My typical tone is more in a happy sunshine space, which is why I ended up at Disney in the first place. And so I wrote that as kind of just stretching my wings, trying something else, finished that series. And then when I came to cozy mysteries, I actually found that it's like coming home because I'm using a lot of the things that come naturally to me. It's happy endings, community, people believing in the best of each other, people caring about each other. I think when Rebecca goes to Monrovia, she finds this wonderful little village and makes great friends. And even though there's like some quirky, cranky people, at the end of the day, like you can count on each other. And it feels like coming home to me. Like even as a screenwriter, I never did anything cynical. Everything I write will have a happy ending. And so does the Predator Prey series. Like I make sure that I don't end on an existential, cynical note. So it's just stretching your wings in different ways and being aware of what your readers want. And I am a big cozy reader myself. So by the time I worked on the Mystery at Monrovia Castle series, I mean, I've read like hundreds of cozies at this point, and I understand what people are emotionally seeking when they read those books.
Absolutely. And this actually kind of leads into a few fan questions, which some of my viewers want me to ask you, Valerie. So this viewer asks, has your background as a screenwriter given you sort of an edge in the publishing world? And what they mean by that is screenwriters write in a way that's very descriptive, naturally, and detailed, but very to the point, removing the fat and just showing the lean muscle. Would you agree with that? Or is it a little bit more different as opposed to, writing a standard fiction book?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. Thank you to that listener. Yeah, it's definitely helped me. I think that, screenwriting and writing for books they are different arts. People assume because screenwriting is so utilitarian and we have so much less space on the page that, screenwriting students are told like it's a blueprint for a movie, just throw it in there. And when I teach, I tell my students, no, the script is an end user product. Like even if the movie never gets made, somebody reading your script should feel something and walk away having had like an experience. So, in terms of writing style, it is true. I don't like a lot of fat. I don't waste a lot of time. I like my stories to move. I want people to be very engaged and I do have a bit of an edge being able to pick the most utilitarian way to put words on the page, but also the most impactful and emotionally resonant. So there might be 10 different ways I can say it, but when it's going on a page, I try to pick the one that like evokes the most emotion, but is also to the point. I'm not like that in life. I can jibber jabber forever. But yeah, and so it does give you a little bit of an edge. What's different is, you know, learning reader expectations. I think for screenwriters, we kind of fit in our little niche naturally, and you have producers helping you figure out where you can use your voice. And with books, there definitely was an element of like understanding what an audience expects a little bit more. Like you just to help you with that with the screenplay and kind of keep you in bounds. With a book, I kind of needed to understand, you know, what are fans emotionally seeking. So that was a little bit different. And another benefit is that I'm fast. That is something coming from screenwriting. We write thousands and thousands of pages a year, and we rewrite things constantly, and we adapt. And it's just, you would not believe the volume of work required to make a living as a screenwriter. So I'm fast and like, you know, prolific. I don't know why I hate that word, but yeah, I can churn out a lot of material that's pretty high quality because I've just been doing it for 15 years at this point.
Man, oh man. So kind of on that note, you know, since you do have that background in screenplay writing, screenwriting, and you've sort of developed your voice as a writer and an author, I also imagine it is, at least in the beginning stages, a very lonely experience because it is just us in our rooms and it's hours and hours of writing. And I've talked to a lot of authors on this question, and I love getting answers for this. And is when do we feel comfortable letting people know that we are working on this? I've had a lot of authors on the show say that they've usually told their friends and family that they've written a book after it's already been completed, and in some cases they tell them straight from the get-go. So for you, did you tell your friends and family that you were working on your series of books, beginning with Trials of Obsession and of course your cozy mystery series that you're currently working on?
Yeah, I did. I think it's really important to have support. So, you know, obviously be thoughtful about who you share information with, but, you know, like you pointed out, it can be lonely. It's really important to have support. You know, I started writing the first book as kind of an experiment. And then when those started doing well, you know, it actually was my mom who suggested opening up the publishing company, and we co-owned the publishing company together. And she was like, these are great. Like, you should keep writing books. And so the encouragement from friends and family can really be a special thing. Because for me, I was kind of like, I don't know, there's just so much you can do. And the industry is shifting right now. Like all of entertainment and media, whether it's books, movies, or television, is shifting. And having someone say like, hey, you should keep running down this path is a really valuable thing. So, you know, Emerald Lion Press, our publishing company, is a family business, and we co-own it and can do books direct to consumers. So for me, I think you should share with people. I told friends I was writing books, and, you know, they've been so amazing. Like, people have come to launch parties, and people came to LA Festival of Books. My friends came to stop at the booth, and friends will order books. Friends in my pickleball club have been so kind and like told me I read your book, and they got it on Audible, or they ordered a paperback. And it's really meaningful to have community. So I think you should include people in it and tell them. I think what people worry about too is they don't want to stay too early in the process because they feel this imposter syndrome, where book and someone's going to say everybody's writing a book, you know, and just ignore those people. If it's valuable for you to have encouragement, tell people what you're doing, and allow it to be real. I think the imposter syndrome comes from like, well, it's just a work in progress, or it's just one book, or it's just one, or it only sold 5,000 copies and you have to sell 10 to be like, all of that. The bar is always going to move. You're always going to feel like an imposter. You're going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. And I can tell you this from my own life and experience, and you're still going to feel like an imposter. You know, it's like you're working for the biggest studio in the world, and there's still a part of you that's like, yeah, but I need to achieve this. Like, it's such a dangerous habit to get into. So I advise my students and young writers, young meaning starting out at any phase in life, just just own it right from the beginning. Be like, I am a writer. Did you write today? Congratulations, you're a writer. And if you have supportive people in your life, my goodness, why wouldn't you tell them, you know?
Absolutely. And you know what? You hit the nail on the head on the next set of questions, because these two are probably the most important and reflective of all the interview questions. And this one I'm going to give context to, and the discussion around it is being authors in the digital age, because the industry has changed within the last 20 years. And social media is like a necessity and essential for authors who want to grow their platform, who want to gain readership, who want to network. But social media is also a double-edged sword. I talked to a lot of authors on the show about their personal experiences, and while they have not had, you know, a lot of negative critiques or negative experiences, it does happen. It does exist. And then, of course, from those experiences, writer's block, imposter syndrome, they all just fill in, and just, it's a very negative feeling. So ultimately, Valerie, here is the question for you. Throughout your journey as an author, actress, screenwriter, being in the industry for 15 years, have you ever had those moments of heightened anxiety or imposter syndrome? And what has disciplined you to continue going? I like using the word discipline, because initially for this question, it was motivated. But I realized, you know, after doing the show now for about 6-7 years, motivation's good, but discipline is better because it keeps you consistent. So ultimately, what has that been like for you? The imposter syndrome, the heightened anxiety, and just keeping to a routine.
We don't talk about the anxiety, Gabe. I just remembered I have to go. You can't address it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, what motivates me is that I know there's somebody else on the other side of this video watching, with the hopes that they'll hear something that encourages them to follow their dream, right?
Right.
Or to be healed, or to believe that they're enough, or whatever it is. So that's why, you know, I can overcome any anxiety and go to panels and do festivals and talk to people and teach. Honestly, I'm a professor as well. I teach screenwriting at a couple different universities, including top 5 film school, LMU. And so, you know, I work with a lot of people who want to do this difficult thing, but sometimes get in their own way. And that's my motivation sometimes for overcoming my own hesitations, is like, I just want to be there for that person on the other side of the screen who wants to hear that they can do it too. And so that makes me overcome any anxiety. You know, I have done red carpets. I have worn designer dresses and had somebody follow me with an umbrella, because if I damage the dress, I'm in trouble. Spoiler, I went to Chick-fil-A in that dress. Don't tell them that. I drove through Chick-fil-A afterwards and ate in the dress, which is horrifying, but it was returned in perfect condition. But, you know, I've done all these panels and things. And I mean, the thing I don't like about social media and about, you know, maybe doing some press is that people can create a false image. Like they can come out there and tell the rest of the world, everything's great. There's this, there's that. They can create something that isn't real. And so as long as I go and I'm real with you guys, I feel like I've done a good thing. You know, I'm being like pretty honest and telling you what I've found that works for me, and I'm coming at it from like a teaching, helpful mindset. I think that's valuable. But what I don't like is when people maybe kind of craft an image that isn't authentic, and I understand why they do it. I have all the empathy in the world for that. But you know, I think we're coming into a time where artists are controlling their image a little bit more because they have social media, and that's a benefit to it as well. As if they want to, they can create a really honest, authentic place where nobody is censoring, you know, what they have to say to their fans or how they connect with them. And I think that's exciting. As far as like negative feedback or bad reviews go, when I get a bad review on a book from a reader, I just say like, oh, it wasn't for them. And that's okay, because no book is going to be for everybody.
True.
Same with screenplays. Like when it doesn't, you know, it's not a go or somebody didn't like it, I'm just like, oh, it wasn't for them. And if there's useful feedback, I'll listen to it. But if it's just, it wasn't a match, it's kind of, it's kind of like dating. It's just like, oh, wasn't a match. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means you weren't a fit. And one of my favorite things to do when I get a bad review is go read 1-star reviews on classic American novels, and see, like, there's somebody who hates Catcher in the Rye. There's a lot of people who hate Catcher in the Rye. And, like, there's a lot of people who think it's brilliant. And I'm comfortable with that dissonance. That's fine. That's good. We don't all have to agree.
Absolutely. And from what you actually just said just now, this leads into the next question, which is probably one of my favorite questions of this part of the interview, which is the debate whether or not, as creators, we are in a golden age or rather an iron age. So I'll give some context for this question. So as I said, doing this show now 6-7 years, out of like 400 something videos, 179 authors have been interviewed, and from that large pool, a majority of authors, specifically indie authors, we all began our writing journey back in 2020 during the height of the lockdowns for COVID. A lot of us have found the term COVID authors that has now come about recently in some snippets, and ultimately from this discussion, there was like a pool that was just waiting to be released after, the lockdowns and everything. And from that tidal wave, new voices emerged in the industry, new writers, new artists, editors, narrators, incredible. And there's been this debate of whether or not, because of these new voices, we are in a golden age or rather an iron age. And iron age, people are now tending to side with, because yes, iron is shiny, but it's not as shiny as gold, but it's stronger and more durable.
Ooh.
And add on to that, people have also been saying that we're entering a pseudo dark age with the rise of AI entering the publishing industry, to where anybody could take a prompt, put in ChatGPT, write a book, and just sell it like hotcakes, where it mass produces a false sense of creativity. So ultimately, Valerie, the question is, from your personal experiences, from your background and your years of expertise, do you feel that we are in this limbo of from a golden age to an iron age, but may not possibly be in a dark age, or maybe we're in one or the other?
Woof. Oh my God, that's such a big question. So I think it's a golden age for smaller presses and individual indie authors who can be flexible, pivot quickly. I think it's not quite a golden age yet, but I think it's going to be. I think we had like, pandemic, golden age, little bit of iron age after. I think we're going to come back into a golden age and this is with the caveat, for those who are small enterprises that are flexible.
Right.
And I think it's a dark age for trad publishing. They can't pivot as quickly,
No, that's true. That's very true.
And then as far as the AI goes, I say this with love and concern as someone who's worked a lot of different types of jobs. I mean, I'm in academia, I've worked as a screenwriter, I've done some I've done a lot of different stuff. And then I'm my own indie author. So, as far as the AI goes, in relation to trad publishing, I think any industry where there's a lot of jobs to get one product out, those jobs are going to suffer. So if you're at a trad publisher and they are needing an editor, a human narrator, a cover designer, they need the actual people that work at the publishing company themselves. There's assistants that they have, there's people do the financials, they run the money side of the business. When you think about how many jobs there are at a trad publisher, and you think about which of those jobs is AI going to be able to do,
yes,
those publishing companies need to be skinnier. And we're seeing it now in all industries. Businesses are getting skinnier and leaner, and they're cutting people, and they're saying, oh, these 5 people will do the jobs of the 20 that we had. And my soothsayer side says that's going to continue. And by necessity, indie publishers are already doing that. we're already running lean. You know, we might work with a contractor who's a cover designer, but as far as these different things go, like we are running the business side, we are doing the financials, we are, you know, editing, we might have an editor we work with sometimes, but you know, we're relying on our ARC readers. Like we are running a lot leaner, and that makes it easier to pivot and easier to be flexible. And so I think it's a dark age for trad publishing. I think it could be a golden age for indie authors who already know the landscape but can pivot. I think AI is going to be incredibly disruptive. Not in the way people expect. I don't think trad publishers are suddenly going to be using AI to churn out books. I think there's always going to be a human in charge of the technology who's probably like curating it and working with it and, you know, using it as a teammate. But I do think it's going to take a lot of the more white collar jobs in businesses where, you know, you're employing a lot of people to get out a single product. The value of the product is going to go down, and it's not going to support those salaries, I think.
Absolutely. And also, just to add on to that, I remember a guest on the show will probably give the best answer to AI writing anything. He said, and I quote, asking AI to write you a book, it's like asking an alcoholic 7th grader to write the book for you. It's not going to be the best. You're going to have to edit it. And ultimately, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be editing the book and realizing you should have just done it in and of yourself. You should have just written the book from the get-go. And, you know, that topic of, you know, trial and error of like, you know, getting something out there leads now perfectly into my favorite segment of the interview, the business side of being an author. So as a little icebreaker question, it's a two-parter, Valerie. So when you began publishing your books, beginning with Trials of Obsession, what was the most surprising thing you've learned about the industry? And then from Trials of Obsession to now, is there anything that you would have done differently in terms of publishing a book, maybe marketing your book, anything that you would have done differently from Trials of Obsession to now?
I think the most interesting thing I learned is that there's different types of readers, which seems obvious on its face, but it wasn't something I'd like deeply thought about or researched. And now, more time into it, you know, there are certain readers who will read 3 books a year, or, you know, there's readers who will read 1 book a month, and then there's readers who will read a book every day.
Yes.
And if you're an indie author, you know, who are you looking to please? Are you writing the prestige book for the person who reads a few a year off Oprah's list? Or are you looking for the person who is reading a book every day and may have different expectations for what they're getting out of it? So understanding your reader was something that on the business side, I was really excited to learn. And now I've had the opportunity to connect with readers personally, and that's been very cool. Yeah, that would be my answer to that. What was the second part of the question?
The second part was from Trials of Obsession to now in your Cozy Mystery series. Is there anything you would have done differently when you start off, you know, writing books?
Okay, gotcha. There's nothing I would have done differently because I love my babies. That my books are like, you know, you love them for what they are. If I didn't believe in them, I wouldn't have written them. There is something I learned though. So with Trail of Obsession, it's actually really cross genre because it's a survival story that's also about self-discovery. So for me, it was kind of like a fictional version of Wild, so to speak.
Ah, okay.
Right. But what I learned is readers in the thriller genre aren't de facto all about self-exploration. That may not be what they're looking for. And readers in the self-exploration genre maybe aren't looking for a thrilling time, right? And so for me, combining those two as an artist was really interesting and something I'm still proud of. But it's like, how do I reach the nonfiction readers of Wild and convince them that they should come over to this fiction book in the thriller space that's going to give them the same emotional experience? Like, yes, that's a question I'm still working on answering. And, you know, again, this book sells out every in-person event we do. Like, this is the one people want. And I think it's because they meet me and, you know, I tell them what's special about it. But it's really hard to communicate that when you're not face to face. So when I wrote this cozy mystery series, I had read so many cozies and kind of done a preliminary reach out to readers in the cozy space. And I really felt confident that this was something that would be easy for them to immediately respond to. Like, they'll look at the cover and they'll look at what it's about and say, yes, I get it, right away. They're going to understand. So, and you know, I wanted to write about a castle again. Coming from Disney, I just wanted to write about a castle, but I knew it would work in the cozy mystery space. So, or I highly suspect it. I didn't get to prove it till we started releasing that series. So, you know, I definitely have learned as I've gone along, but I wouldn't do anything differently because I'm so proud of the work itself.
Okay, all right. And going back to what you talked about, you know, trying to get the audience and the readers from wild, that now segues perfectly into the next question, which is understanding one's audience, because I'm sure you'll definitely agree, when we write our stories, we are the target audience because we know it better than anyone else. But when we publish it, that's when we have to switch off the writing brain and now go into the business marketing brain. And that has always been a struggle for me. Talk with a lot of authors, and that is one of the biggest struggles. And there's been this new development that I've been seeing, where is, what is it better to market to? And what I mean by that is it better to market to your target audience in the genre that you're writing for, or is it better to market your book to a particular readership, whether it's YA, new adult, or adult fiction?
Mhm.
And there's not really a yes or no answer to this, but I definitely do see some people leaning to one side or the other. So, Valerie, another two-parter. From Childhood Obsession to now, do you have a good idea of your target audience? And also, as the professor and academic, when, in your opinion, is it best for an author to really have a good idea of their audience or their readership that they are marketing towards?
So it depends on what your goal is. I mean, when I was mainly screenwriting, we would have a saying, 2 for them, 1 for you. And it's like you would do 2 projects that were very business minded, and you would think about what are the gaps in the market, what kind of material is heavily being sought after right now. Oh, they want horror films with a female lead and this kind of plot line. Let me see if I can get one of those in play. And then you do one that's just kind of because you wanted to, right?
Right.
You didn't have a strategy. You weren't like, I think this will perform really well. You just were like, I really want to tell this story. So that's one approach, I think, is you can kind of do some projects that where you really thought about the marketplace, and other ones where you're like, I don't know, let's see. And there's no guarantee for anything. Sometimes the wild card is the one that performs really well.
That's true.
Yeah, even though the one you strategized over had every reason to do well and for some reason didn't. Like, so I think there's value to kind of having a mix. As far as marketing goes, I do think about who my customers are, and at this point I have a lot of data on the people that are reading my books, so I can see who our readers are to a degree. I can see like kind of the age range and the gender, and I can see what else they've read, which is very valuable. Understanding, like, in addition to my books, people who bought these other books. That's kind of fun to see, like, what else are they reading. And I think about their profile as a person, like, you know, what is their life like and what do they enjoy? And I talk to them. Like, that's the bigger thing, is just, I invite in my newsletter. I like hearing from readers. Like you said, writing is lonely. And I'm like, you know, tell me how you're doing. I went on a cruise to Cabo and I put pictures from the cruise and I was like, what's your favorite cruise? Where have you been? And I love that. Like, I get to kind of know the average reader that we have, and also know them as people individually. So from a marketing point of view, I guess I definitely think about the individual and who they are and what emotionally they're looking for in reading. They can choose any genre. Why are they choosing cozy mysteries? What does that space give them that another genre doesn't? And then I kind of gear my marketing towards that. Like, if I know they're reading cozy mysteries because they want adventure, but also comfort, which is why I read them, you know, I try to really play up the sense of community or the happy ending, or that she's investigating with her best friend, you know, but also make clear that it's an adventure. So I do think about the individual reader and what they're getting out of it. more than some like vague group, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And kind of on that topic, for you doing so many things, how do you balance this pole of, your voice as the author and the writer, but also understanding the genre that you're writing in? Because as I'm sure you learning through trial and error, that each genre has a certain expectation that the reader expects, and you don't want it to be too original. We don't want it to be a carbon copy. It's this balancing act. So for you, Valerie, how have you been able to balance the two?
I think that it comes down to understanding why people read that genre in the first place. So, people who read cozy mystery don't want a lot of violence. They want some adventure, but they want that sense of belonging. And they'll explore a lot of different environments. There are cozies that take place on a cruise ship. There are cozies that take place at a diner. Like, there's so many different ways to explore worlds. And coming from Disney, I really like world building. That's something that's very much my voice. Happy endings and world building are very much me. So, for this series, I got to create an entire country. And all of that is so my voice. Like, it's here, I can show you. Maybe, hang on, I have a stuffed animal. My friend got me a stuffed animal to congratulate the opening of the business. But anyway, if you look at my little board here, I have all the characters and things. And like this guy, the giraffe named Alfredo, that eats spaghetti. I'm like, not very many other people are writing about giraffes eating spaghetti. It just interests me. And I work in my own voice through all of these people. This is Chef Renaud, and she's this incredible chef that works at the castle. And she's this professional woman who's overcome a lot to like be able to make these beautiful dishes for people. And that's my voice. And that's like me putting myself into it. The genre expectation is just like knowing what my readers want. And thankfully, I think my voice naturally, I told you, I don't do cynical things. I don't do potential things. So this idea of happy endings and kind of giving people hope and comfort is very natural for me, because that organically is where I live.
Awesome, Valerie. So we're almost nearing the end. There's a few more questions, but now this time I'm going to give you some rapid fire fan questions. So brace yourself. These are really, really good.
All right.
First rapid fire question: themes or tropes in stories?
Both. I don't know. This is too much pressure. You need them both. Both.
Awesome. Okay.
Undermine them, reverse them, but also deliver. Okay.
All right. Next one. What is more challenging, writing a story that's immersive or writing a story that appeals to the five senses?
Five senses.
All right. Next question. Best way to introduce a story, through conflict or through emotion?
Conflict.
All right. Next one. What has influenced your characters the most, film or other books?
Other books.
All right. Next one. Ooh, this one's probably my favorite. What makes a character truly authentic? Writing them as if they were a real person or writing if they are a reflection of you?
Real person.
All right. And then last question. What is probably the biggest myth of the publishing industry? That we have to write a certain amount of books to be successful, or we have to be a certain mindset to be successful?
Certain mindset.
Nice. And that actually segues now into the last few questions, which are probably my two favorite. So we've talked about a lot of things, Valerie, which are all very, very important. And this last question, which I'm actually going to now tailor into the final question together because it's so good. So in this industry, as I've learned, and also you have learned since you have much more experience, is that there is no guarantee a work that you're working on is going to be a success. And ultimately, in this industry, it's not a get rich quick money scheme. Will we all like it to be? Absolutely, but that's not the case. And down this road, I've learned that from all the authors that I've met, there are two paths presented to us. One is to be an author. The other is to be known as an author. two different objectives. One is dedicated to the craft, the art of storytelling. The other is dedicated to the business, growing the brand, growing the name. They lead to the same end goal, which is success, but the objectives intertwined with them, they are all very different. But what is true is that you have to have your goals be realistic. And I think that really didn't get talked about as much. And ultimately, I think networking is very essential to that. So let's imagine this little scenario of Valerie. So let's say you're hosting a workshop class, and
Okay.
your class is filled with aspiring writers, screenwriters, possibly some poets. And out of the wide pool of topics that you can talk to them about, what is the one topic that you would like to share with them that you would also like to leave as almost like your word of wisdom? And then tying it into ultimately networking and connecting with other people in this industry, especially if you're an indie writer, publishing house, whatever.
Okay, so if I were teaching that workshop, I would probably make the core focus knowing your why, which is why you write. And it applies in a couple different ways. It's what your goal is as a writer. I meet people who have one project that they want to share, one story that they want to tell because it's important to them to get it out there into the world. They may not want to have a huge career as a writer with 50 different properties that they've worked on. They might, and that's totally valid. They might just want to tell this one story. So know your why. Are you someone who wants to tell dozens of stories and you have constant ideas? Like for me, people always ask me, where do you get ideas? And I'm like, I have more than I could ever write in a lifetime. And I'm not going to get to them all. I'm going to die with stories I wish I'd been able to tell, and they'll go away. And hopefully like muses will give them to somebody else who's still here. But I write like Hamilton, like I'm running out of time. But not everybody's like that. You may have just one story you want to tell, and that's okay too. We don't all have to have the same reasons for doing it. And then within the work itself, there's also understanding your why. So when people care about a project, they may care about it because there's relationships in the story that have a certain dynamic that they want to tell, and they like to reflect relationships between characters. There's also the why of a message, and this is how I write. Everything I write has like a secret message behind it, and I kind of look at it as like a parable or preaching or teaching, and there's something behind it I'm trying to communicate to the world. And then there's people who write because they just want to explore an idea, and they don't have it. They don't have a hidden agenda or a secret message. They're like, I just want to show the complexities of this human experience, and I want to get in there and explore it, and I'm not going to give you an answer. And that's fine too. So I would make that workshop about your why. Why do you want to tell stories? How many do you want to tell? What's your motivation for exploring writing? And within the stories themselves, what drives you to write those? Because then you'll never lose what's important to you.
Absolutely, 100%. And this one is actually a final fan question, which I'm actually going to tell you with another, and it is this. So throughout your career, there have been a lot of people that have helped you in every facet of the industries that you've been a part of.
Absolutely.
Who are those people that you would like to give a shout out to? And also, as an author, what is the one thing you want your readers to take away from all the stories that you've written?
I love that. Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to my mom, who's been an amazing supporter my entire life and is also co-owner of this business with me, because, you know, she's always championed like art can also be something that you make a living from, you know, and I think it's rare to find parents who believe that. And she's also an awesome businesswoman who brings so much perspective into the business side of this that I'm really lucky to have. So shout out there. I want to give a shout out to my friends who have been, you know who you are, who've been amazingly supportive and have bought my books and showed up and had me in your book clubs and just really been there for me as I've like grown this new experience. And then what was I always forget the last part of your questions, Gabe. I'm sorry.
No problem. So the last question is, as the author writing numerous books, what do you want your readers to take away from the stories that you are sharing?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, tying that into the previous part of the question, I also would say shout out to like God and the universe. I put in my books this element of spirituality, and in some of the acknowledgments, I even say like, thank you to God, thank you to the muses. Like, I do think we're inspired by things so much greater than ourselves. And so as far as what I want people to take away from the books, I really like to write with the hope of what can be. That's the point for me. So even if it seems like it's a popcorn commercial book, like My Cozy Mysteries, it's, oh, you're going on this adventure to a foreign country and there's a giraffe that eats spaghetti and it's fun and it's happy. That seems popcorn and light and commercial. But when you dig underneath, what I'm really showing is a community where people work together. And in the castle I've created, Rebecca finds friendships that she can count on and people who have values they're willing to sacrifice for. And there's themes throughout the series of, the Duke kind of making these personal sacrifices because he believes in service leadership. He believes he owes something to the people, that, he has been blessed with this status in life and he is a servant to the people of Monrovia. And so there's always a deeper message in what I'm writing. And it's usually one that's saying it's a thesis. It's my why is this message. And the thesis is, hey guys, we could be like this. I'm like, we could have leaders who are servants to the people and know that they are working for the people who hired them. Hey, we could have communities where we have friendships that are giving and we support each other. And even in difficult times, we're willing to sacrifice some things on an individual level for the good of our community. And that's something that should be lauded and not looked at as weakness. It's really strength. And so, that's definitely a message in this current series.
Amazing, Valerie. Absolutely amazing. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude another amazing author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing episode. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest, Valerie, for making her official debut here on the show. Valerie, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Really means a lot. Before we officially end, where can people find you on social media to reach out and connect? Where can people buy your books? And do you have any upcoming announcements you'd like to share? Any book signings or any books in the works? Any events you're going to be a part of?
Well, first I'll say thank you so much for having me, Gabe. I've done a lot of interviews over my life so far, and this has been one of the most fun. So thank you for that. I would say announcements. I have the 6th book in this series coming out, and it is Halloween themed. So Murder at the Masquerade is coming out late August. So if you're looking for a Halloween read, that might just be an option. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm Valerie Brandy Writer. You can email me at emeraldlionpress@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can go to valeriebrandy.com and join my mailing list. I do put a lot of fun stuff in my mailing list. I actually have a free book coming out just for members of my list. And it's in the Mystery at Monrovia Castle series, but it's like it's an offshoot that's an adventure that's only for people on my mailing list. So if you join in the next couple weeks, you will get that book. So valeriebrandy.com, you can also find the books there and get them directly from me signed if you want a paperback. Otherwise, we are on Amazon, Barnes & Noble online. You can find us in all the usual places.
Awesome. I will link all those down below in the description of this video. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the stuff on my end, viewers and listeners, make sure to also check out my website, The Wandering Scribe. It is Wandering Scribe. I know a lot of people are asking about that. Wandering was taken, so I had to go with Wonder. So it's wanderingscribe.com. It is on my YouTube channel. And if you're subscribed to my newsletter, it's also attached there. And be on the lookout for my official review of Trials of Obsession, which we posted on my website with the link to buy it for yourself. And as always, thank you everyone for joining us for another amazing episode. A huge thank you to Valerie for making her debut on the show. We wish her the very best from one author to another. And as always, viewers and listeners, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And until next time, this is the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all in the next episode.